Imagine the sound of an alarm clock at 6 in the morning. A tired hand reaches over to silence it, and even before the eyes fully open, the phone lights up with bank notifications, credit card reminders, and a message from a landlord about rent due next week. The day has not even begun, yet the pressure of money already presses like a heavy stone on the chest. For millions of people, this is not an exaggeration, but a daily routine. Money, in theory, is just paper, metal, or numbers on a screen. Yet in our modern world, it has become a measure of survival, a definition of self-worth, and the gatekeeper of every dream. People work not just to eat, but to pay bills stacked like bricks: electricity, internet, insurance, student loans. Each bill is a silent demand that whispers, "You are never enough. You must run faster, earn more." Stay afloat or sink dot in many American households. Debt is a hidden roommate. It sleeps in the corner of the bedroom, follows families to the dinner table, and never leaves the mind. Student loans stretch into middle age, mortgages demand decades of sacrifice, and credit cards lure with convenience while chaining with interest. Couples argue late at night, not because love is gone, but because the numbers on the spreadsheet refuse to add up. Parents sigh as they say no to a child's request, not from lack of love, but from fear of overdraft fees. This financial pressure does more than empty pockets. It empties hearts. When every decision revolves around cost, life begins to shrink. Vacations feel like impossible luxuries. Dreams are postponed endlessly. Maybe next year, when I save more, even simple pleasures, dining out, buying a small gift, carry guilt, as if joy must be justified in dollars. Slowly, people begin to measure themselves not by kindness, creativity, or integrity, but by their bank account balance. Success becomes synonymous with income, and worth becomes a fluctuating number tied to the economy. The anxiety around money is not just personal, it is cultural. From a young age, children absorb the unspoken truth. Your value depends on what you own. Commercials show smiling families only after a new car, a bigger house, the latest phone. Advertisements whisper, "Buy this and you will be respected. Own that and you will finally belong." In this narrative, financial struggle feels like failure, and anyone falling behind the race carries shame alongside debt. But deep down, there is a contradiction. People sense that more money does not always equal more peace. After all, haven't we seen wealthy celebrities crumble under stress, addiction, or loneliness? Haven't we read about lottery winners whose sudden riches only multiplied their troubles? Yet despite knowing this, the chase continues. Why? Because money has become not only a necessity, but also a substitute for security, for love, even for identity. Losing it feels like losing life itself. Picture a young professional commuting to work. She sits on the train, clutching a coffee she cannot really afford, scrolling through endless emails. She feels like her job defines her future, yet her paycheck disappears within days. Rent devours one portion, car payments another, groceries the rest. By the end of the month, there is little left, but the cycle restarts with no pause. The stress gnaws quietly, but persistently, like a dripping faucet in the night. Now, imagine a father working 2 jobs. He leaves home before sunrise and returns after dark, his children already asleep. His absence is not from lack of love, but from necessity. He convinces himself that one day he will rest, one day he will provide enough. Yet, enough always shifts like a horizon forever, just out of reach. This endless striving shapes not only individual lives, but relationships. Marriages strain under financial pressure. Friendships quietly dissolve when one person can no longer afford the outings. Even self-esteem erodes, as people compare their lives to carefully curated images on social media, images of vacations, houses, lifestyles that appear effortless but often hide invisible debts. The mind under financial stress rarely rests. It replays worries at night. What if I lose my job? How will I pay the rent? What if the car breaks down? What if the economy collapses? Anxiety becomes a constant companion, showing up in tight shoulders, clenched jaws, restless sleep. Even moments of joy are interrupted by the reminder that joy is expensive, and time is money. The cruel irony is that in chasing financial stability, many lose the very stability they seek. They sacrifice health with overwork, sacrifice relationships with absence, sacrifice peace of mind with constant worry. Money, intended as a tool, becomes a master. It dictates choices, moods, even self-worth. Instead of serving life, life begins to serve money. Yet, amid this heavy picture, there is also recognition. This suffering is not unique to any one person. It is a collective struggle, a story shared across households, cities, and even nations. The worry about money is not a private shame, but a common thread tying modern lives together. To acknowledge this is already a small act of compassion, because it reminds us that we are not alone in this weight. And so, as we sit with this reality, the sleepless nights, the endless bills, the quiet arguments, we can also begin to ask, is there another way to relate to money? Is there a way to live without letting numbers on a screen dictate our happiness? This is where wisdom, passed down for centuries, offers a different perspective. It does not promise instant wealth or magic solutions, but it does offer a truth. Our suffering is less about money itself and more about the meaning we attach to it. The next step in our journey is to explore how this ancient wisdom, so simple yet so profound, can begin to loosen the grip of financial anxiety. When we look at money through the eyes of everyday life, it feels permanent, powerful, and absolute. It seems to dictate whether we are safe, respected, or even lovable. Yet the first teaching that Buddhism offers is startling in its simplicity. Nothing is permanent. Think about the dollar bill itself. It changes hands countless times. Today it rests in your pocket. Tomorrow it belongs to a stranger across town. The numbers in your bank account rise and fall, sometimes by your own effort, sometimes by forces far beyond your control. An economic shift, a medical bill, a sudden job loss. This constant movement reveals a truth. Money, like all things, is impermanent. To cling to it as though it were eternal is to build a house on shifting sand. This impermanence is not meant to frighten us, but to free us. If money is not fixed, then neither is our suffering around it. The anxiety that feels unbearable today is not destined to last forever. The bills that seem overwhelming this month will one day be paid or forgotten. Even financial struggles that define entire seasons of life eventually pass. Like waves on the ocean, they rise, crash, and dissolve. Yet many of us, forgetting this truth, grasp at money with desperate hands. We believe that if only we earn enough, save enough, own enough, we will finally be secure. But enough is a moving target. The moment we reach one milestone, a higher salary, a nicer apartment, a better car, our mind sets its sights on the next. Desire breeds more desire. This is what the Buddha called tanha thirst. It is not thirst for water, but thirst for permanence, certainty, and control in a world that is constantly changing. One of the most radical antidotes to this thirst is the practice of santuthi, or contentment. Contentment is not resignation. It is not giving up ambition or ignoring responsibility. Instead, it is the art of recognizing sufficiency in the present moment. It is the quiet realization that while money may come and go, life itself, breath, relationships, kindness already provides what is most essential. Consider the difference between two people. One earns an average salary, but cultivates gratitude daily, appreciating a modest meal, a walk in the park, a warm conversation. The other earns twice as much, but constantly compares, scrolling through social media, chasing status symbols, and feeling perpetually behind. Who is truly wealthy? From a Buddhist perspective, wealth is not measured by accumulation, but by the absence of craving. The richest person is not the one with the largest bank account, but the one whose heart rests in contentment. This teaching invites us to reframe the role of money. Instead of seeing it as the foundation of happiness, we can see it as a tool useful, but not ultimate. When we treat money as a tool, it loses its power to define our worth. A hammer does not make us valuable or worthless. It simply builds what needs building. Money, too, is like that. It buys food, shelter, opportunities, but it cannot buy peace of mind, nor guarantee love, nor stop time. Asterisk, of course, hearing this teaching is easier than living it. Bills still arrive. Rent is still due. Groceries still cost more than we would like. So how do we apply this wisdom practically? One approach is mindfulness in spending and earning. Instead of allowing fear or desire to control financial decisions, we pause and ask, what is truly necessary? What serves well-being and what feeds craving? This pause transforms money from a source of anxiety into a practice ground for awareness. For example, imagine standing in a store, tempted by a new gadget. The mind whispers, if I buy this, I will feel more complete. Mindfulness notices the whisper without judgment. It asks, is this purchase an act of care or an act of craving? Will this truly bring peace, or will it bring a moment of thrill followed by more longing? This gentle inquiry is not about guilt, but about clarity. It reminds us that happiness does not hide on a store shelf. It resides in how we relate to desire itself. Another practice is generosity, or dana. At first, generosity might sound impossible when finances already feel tight. Yet even small acts, sharing a meal, donating a little, helping someone in need, soften the grip of money on our hearts. Generosity reminds us that abundance is not about how much we hold, but how much we can let flow. It shifts the inner narrative from scarcity to trust. When we give, we affirm that we are not defined by what we cling to, but by the openness of our heart. Generosity also plants seeds of joy. Think back to a time you gave sincerely, expecting nothing in return. Do you remember the warmth that spread through you? That warmth is not purchased. It is awakened. Buddhism teaches that this joy is deeper and more enduring than the fleeting thrill of acquiring something new. In giving, we paradoxically feel richer. Letting go, or vairagya, is the companion to generosity. Letting go does not mean neglecting responsibility. It does not mean quitting your job and ignoring bills. Rather, it means loosening the inner grip, the belief that money defines us, the fear that without it, we are nothing. When we release that grip, money becomes lighter. We still earn, we still spend, but we are no longer enslaved. A powerful metaphor is that of holding a burning ember. When we clutch money with craving and fear, it burns us. When we release our tight grasp, we free ourselves from the burn. We can still use the ember to light a candle, to bring warmth, to cook food, but we no longer let it scorch our hands. Slowly, this shift transforms daily life. Imagine opening your mailbox and finding a bill. Instead of panic, you take a breath. You remind yourself, this bill is temporary, like all things. You will address it as best you can, but you will not allow it to define your worth. Or imagine receiving your paycheck. Instead of rushing to spend or worrying about insufficiency, you pause in gratitude. This is enough for now. In that pause, the paycheck becomes not just money, but a teacher in impermanence and sufficiency. Over time, these small practices, mindful spending, generosity, letting go, create a different relationship with money. The anxiety softens. The comparisons lose their grip. You begin to notice joy in places you once overlooked. The warmth of sunlight on your face, the taste of simple food, the presence of a loved one. These joys cost nothing, yet they nourish more deeply than any purchase. The ultimate liberation is recognizing that money cannot buy freedom from suffering, but wisdom can. Buddhism does not ask us to abandon money, but to abandon the illusion that money is the source of happiness. By practicing impermanence, contentment, generosity, and letting go, we reclaim sovereignty over our lives. And so, as we close this chapter, a quiet question lingers. If money is not the master of our happiness, what might life feel like when we treat it as just a tool? This question leads us to the next exploration, the realm of work itself, where the pressure to perform often overshadows the joy of living. The morning begins not with sunlight or birdsong, but with a screen. The alarm buzzes, the phone glows, and before your feet touch the floor, emails and notifications flood your vision. Some are urgent, some are trivial, but all of them shout the same message. You are already behind. For millions of people, this is the daily rhythm of work. A quick shower, a hurried breakfast, if there is time for breakfast at all, and then the rush into traffic or onto crowded trains. Coffee in hand, heart already racing, the mind runs through a checklist of tasks, meetings, deadlines. Work has not officially started, yet stress has already taken its seat at the table. In offices across America, the cycle repeats with precision. The open-plan desk, the flicker of computer screens, the background hum of conversations and keyboards. Meetings stack upon meetings, often leaving little time for actual work. Lunch is eaten at the desk, if at all. By the afternoon, fatigue sets in, but the expectation to stay sharp and productive remains relentless. People smile politely while silently calculating how many more hours they must endure before they can finally rest. Technology, once promised as a tool to save time, now stretches the workday into every corner of life. A phone vibrates at dinner. The laptop glows late into the night. Even weekends are invaded by just a quick email or a small update that turns into hours of hidden labor. The boundary between work and personal life dissolves, leaving people always on, always available, always tense. This constant demand creates what many call the performance treadmill. Like running on a machine that never stops, you must keep moving just to stay in place. Promotions, bonuses, recognition, they come, but they never last. Each achievement quickly fades, replaced by new targets, higher expectations, and fresh pressures. The cycle repeats endlessly. Work harder, achieve more, feel exhausted, then repeat. Inside this treadmill lies a quiet truth. Many workers feel less like human beings and more like cogs in a vast machine. Their individuality, creativity, and spirit become secondary to productivity, efficiency, and output. The question is no longer, who am I? But what have I produced today? Identity becomes fused with performance, and self-worth hangs precariously on the approval of managers, clients, or quarterly reports. Consider the story of a young employee named Sarah. She begins her career with excitement, full of ideas and energy. But soon she notices the unspoken rules. Long hours are praised, exhaustion is worn like a badge of honor, and saying no is seen as weakness. Sarah stays late, skips weekends with friends, and pushes through illness to prove her dedication. At first, recognition comes praise in meetings, emails of thanks. But soon, the praise stops while the demands continue. What was once above and beyond becomes the new baseline. Sarah realizes she is no longer working for growth, but simply to avoid falling behind. Her story is not unique. In fact, it is the silent narrative of countless workers. Surveys show that stress at work is one of the leading causes of burnout, anxiety, and even physical illness. The American Psychological Association regularly reports that job-related stress affects not just mood, but blood pressure, sleep quality, and overall health. The workplace, instead of being a place of creativity and contribution, often becomes a source of chronic suffering. Yet many feel trapped. Bills must be paid, careers must advance, reputations must be maintained. Walking away does not feel like an option. And so, people endure, hoping for relief in the future, a vacation, a retirement plan, or some imagined someday when the pace will slow. But someday rarely arrives. Instead, the treadmill speeds up, fueled by competition, economic pressure, and the cultural belief that our worth equals our work. This belief runs deep in modern society. From a young age, children are asked, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" The answer is expected to be a profession, not a person. Schools prepare students to perform, to score, to compete. Adults introduce themselves by job titles before personality traits. "I am a lawyer, a teacher, an engineer" becomes shorthand for identity. The role consumes the person. Social media amplifies this cycle. Online, people showcase their careers, achievements, and busy lifestyles as proof of success. Scrolling through these curated snapshots, it is easy to feel inadequate, as though everyone else is thriving while you are merely surviving. The pressure to keep up intensifies, adding invisible weight to an already heavy load. Amid this storm of expectations, something precious is quietly lost: presence. Few workers truly experience their day as it unfolds. Instead, they live in constant anticipation of the next deadline, the next meeting, the next performance review. Life becomes a series of after this, then that. After this project, then I will rest. After this quarter, then I will breathe. But the then never comes. The mind races ahead while the body exhausts itself in the present. Asterisk, the toll of this lifestyle extends beyond the workplace. At home, conversations become brief and distracted as the mind replays office stress. Parents may be physically present, but mentally elsewhere, thinking about unfinished tasks. Relationships strain under the weight of exhaustion. Hobbies and passions wither from neglect. Even when physically away from work, people carry it in their minds, like a heavy briefcase they cannot set down. And so, the workplace stress infiltrates every layer of life, convincing us that we are never enough, never finished, never truly free. The irony is that while people chase productivity to secure a better future, they often sacrifice the very present moment that makes life worth living. This chapter does not end in despair, however, for there is another way to approach work, not by abandoning responsibility, but by shifting perspective. Before exploring that shift, it is important to sit fully with this reality. The exhaustion, the constant demands, the feeling of being consumed by performance. To deny this pain is to bury it deeper. But by acknowledging it openly, we prepare the ground for a seed of wisdom to take root. And so we pause here, with the image of a worker staring at a glowing screen late at night, eyes tired, shoulders heavy, wondering if this is all life was meant to be. It is in this very moment of questioning that the possibility of change begins. The next step is to discover how ancient teachings can illuminate a different relationship with work, one rooted not in stress and survival, but in presence and peace. The modern workplace tells us that performance is everything. Results, output, speed, these are the currencies of value. Yet this obsession with outcomes blinds us to something essential: the present moment itself. Buddhism, through the practice of mindfulness, offers a radical reframe. It teaches that the true richness of work is not found in the endless chase of results, but in the quality of presence we bring to each task. Imagine this: instead of rushing into your inbox with dread, you take a single deep breath before opening the first email. That breath does not change the number of messages waiting. It does not erase deadlines, but it does change the space within you. In that pause, your nervous system calms. Your attention sharpens. You are no longer being dragged by your work. You are choosing to meet it. This is the essence of mindfulness, to show up fully for what is happening, without judgment or resistance. It is not about forcing positivity or pretending stress does not exist. Rather, it is about allowing the reality of this moment to be what it is, while softening the mind's constant urge to escape or control. When applied to work, mindfulness turns ordinary tasks into opportunities for clarity. Typing an email becomes not just about hitting send, but about noticing the rhythm of your fingers, the intention behind your words, the act of communication itself. Attending a meeting becomes less about racing to impress and more about listening deeply, speaking thoughtfully, and connecting authentically. Even washing a coffee mug in the office sink can become a moment of grounding, where warm water and simple action remind you that life is happening here, not in some distant future. One powerful story comes from a man who worked in a high-pressure corporate job. Every day, he rushed through tasks, driven by anxiety. But after learning mindfulness, he began setting a simple timer. Every hour, he would stop for just 1 minute of silence. At first, it felt impossible. His mind screamed that he had no time. Yet slowly, he noticed something surprising. Those minutes did not waste time. They restored it. His work became more focused, his decisions clearer, his stress lighter. He realized that by being present, he accomplished more with less strain. This story reflects a truth supported even by science. Studies show that mindfulness reduces workplace stress, improves concentration, and even increases creativity. When the mind is not constantly scattered jumping between worries, regrets, and multitasking, it becomes sharper, like a knife kept clean and honed. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. But mindfulness in work is not only about efficiency. It is about humanity. In the performance treadmill, workers often forget they are human beings, not machines. Mindfulness brings back that humanity. It invites compassion toward oneself and toward others. When a colleague makes a mistake, instead of reacting with frustration, mindfulness notices your irritation, breathes with it, and allows space for empathy. When you feel your own exhaustion, mindfulness does not demand more, but encourages you to rest, even if only for a few breaths. Another teaching from Buddhism that illuminates work is the principle of right effort, part of the Eightfold Path. Right effort does not mean working harder. It means working wisely. It is the balance between laziness and overexertion. Like tuning a guitar string, effort that is too loose produces no sound, while effort that is too tight makes the string snap. The art is in finding the middle way, engaging fully without burning out. In practical terms, this may mean setting clear boundaries, logging off at a reasonable hour, even if emails remain unanswered, saying no to tasks that exceed your capacity, not from laziness, but from wisdom, taking small breaks during the day, not as indulgence, but as essential maintenance for body and mind. Each of these choices is an expression of mindfulness in action, acknowledging the reality of limits and honoring them. Of course, challenges remain. The workplace often resists slowness, rewarding speed over depth. Practicing mindfulness may feel countercultural, even rebellious. Yet small shifts can ripple widely. One mindful employee can change the tone of a meeting simply by listening deeply. One calm presence can ease the anxiety of an entire team. One leader who values presence over panic can transform a company culture, even if the external culture remains demanding. The internal culture, the way you relate to work, can change. Instead of seeing work as an enemy, mindfulness reframes it as practice. Every stressful task becomes a teacher. The tight deadline teaches patience. The difficult colleague teaches compassion. The endless repetition of tasks teaches humility. Work is no longer just about survival or success. It becomes a spiritual classroom. There is a story of a monk who was asked what he did all day in the monastery. His answer was simple: I chop wood, I carry water. When asked how this was different from the life of an ordinary person, he replied, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The point is not the task itself, but the awareness with which it is done. Likewise, in the workplace, whether writing code, serving customers, or preparing reports, the task may remain the same. But when infused with mindfulness, it ceases to be drudgery and becomes practice. This shift does not eliminate stress overnight. Bills still exist. Bosses still demand. Deadlines still arrive. But the difference lies in how the mind meets these realities. Instead of drowning in resistance, you learn to surf the waves. Instead of clinging to results, you rest in the process. Instead of losing yourself in the rush, you discover yourself in presence. The promise of mindfulness is not that work becomes easier, but that it becomes lighter. The burden shrinks when carried with awareness rather than fear. And slowly, the workplace transforms, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. So the next time you sit down at your desk, before diving into tasks, take a single breath. Feel the chair beneath you, the ground supporting you, the air moving in and out of your lungs. Let that breath remind you, you are not a machine, you are a human being. Your worth is not measured by output, but by presence. And as you carry this presence into your work, notice how even the most ordinary tasks, sending an email, answering a call, finishing a report, can become doorways into peace. For in truth, peace is not waiting at the end of a project or in the retirement years ahead. It is available right here, in the midst of your work, in this very breath. This is the quiet revolution mindfulness offers. Not escape from work, but transformation of it. Not freedom from responsibility, but freedom within it. And with this foundation, we can now turn to another universal struggle, the paradox of loneliness in a world more connected than ever before. On the surface, we live in the most connected era of human history. With a single tap, you can send a message across continents, post a photo to hundreds of friends, or join a video call that brings faces from around the globe into your living room. Notifications blink, messages pile up, feeds scroll endlessly. Yet beneath this dazzling web of digital links lies a paradox. Never before have so many people felt so alone. Picture a young man sitting in his apartment on a Friday night. His phone lights up with group chats, social media posts, and updates from coworkers. He scrolls for hours, liking photos, leaving short comments, watching strangers laugh in videos. And yet, when he puts the phone down, a heavy silence surrounds him. The laughter on the screen does not fill his room. The comments he left bring no warmth to his heart. Surrounded by virtual noise, he feels an aching emptiness. This is the quiet epidemic of modern life loneliness in the midst of connection. Surveys show that in the United States, more than half of adults report feeling lonely on a regular basis. Paradoxically, this rise in loneliness has grown alongside the explosion of social media and digital communication. The more we connect online, the less we seem to feel connected in reality. Why does this happen? One reason is that digital connections often lack depth. Social media offers the illusion of closeness without the substance of intimacy. A like is not the same as a heartfelt conversation. A stream of photos does not equal shared experiences. The human heart longs for eye contact, for unspoken understanding, for the gentle presence of someone who truly listens. But these moments are rare in a culture where attention is fragmented into pixels, and sound bites. Another reason is comparison. Online, people showcase their happiest moments. Vacations, promotions, perfect dinners, smiling families. Scrolling through these highlights, it is easy to feel left behind. Everyone else is thriving, the mind whispers, while I am struggling. Loneliness deepens when we believe are imperfect. Reality is a personal failure compared to the curated lives of others. But loneliness is not only about the absence of people. It is about the absence of connection. Some of the loneliest individuals are not those who live alone, but those who sit in crowded offices, noisy bars, or even within marriages that lack emotional intimacy. Being surrounded does not guarantee being seen. Loneliness thrives not in isolation alone, but in invisibility, when your inner world feels unnoticed, unvalued, or unshared. Think of the single parent who spends her days juggling work, childcare, and household responsibilities. She interacts with people constantly: coworkers, teachers, cashiers, but few truly ask how she is. Her exhaustion and fears remain hidden behind a mask of strength. Or consider the teenager who has hundreds of online followers, but no one to call at midnight when his anxiety becomes unbearable. In both cases, the core wound is the same: a hunger for genuine presence. Loneliness is also intensified by the pace of modern life. Schedules are packed, calendars overflow, and conversations become quick transactions. How are you? Busy. There is little space for the kind of slow, unhurried connection that nourishes the soul. Relationships, like plants, require time and care to grow. But in a world obsessed with speed, many bonds remain shallow, wilting from neglect. At its deepest level, loneliness is not just a social problem, but a spiritual one. It arises when we feel cut off from others, from meaning, even from ourselves. In quiet moments, people often discover that the emptiness they feel is not only about missing someone else, but about being estranged from their own hearts. They have spent so much time projecting an image, performing roles, chasing approval, that they have lost touch with who they really are. Alone with themselves, they meet a stranger. This inner estrangement explains why loneliness can feel so haunting. Even in a crowd, even in love, even with success, a person can feel an ache that nothing seems to soothe. It is the ache of separation from self, from truth, from the simple presence of being alive without needing to prove anything. The pain of loneliness shows itself in countless ways. Some numb it with endless scrolling, others with overwork, alcohol, or casual relationships that offer brief distraction but little fulfillment. Some throw themselves into constant busyness to avoid sitting with the silence. Yet, like a shadow, loneliness follows. No matter how fast we run, it waits quietly until we stop whispering, "Something is missing." But here lies a subtle truth. Loneliness itself is not the enemy. It is a signal. Just as hunger signals the body's need for food, loneliness signals the heart's need for connection, both outwardly with others and inwardly with oneself. The ache is not proof of failure. It is proof of humanity. It reminds us that we were not designed to live as isolated islands. To face this truth requires courage. It is easier to keep scrolling, keep working, keep numbing. But when we stop and truly feel the emptiness, we discover its hidden gift. It points us toward what matters most: the desire for love, for belonging, for authentic presence. These are not weaknesses, but deep strengths. They are the compass of the human soul. And so, as we sit with the reality of modern loneliness, the crowded feeds, the empty rooms, the longing for someone who understands, we prepare to open a new door. For in the teachings of wisdom traditions, including Buddhism, lies a gentle reminder: the seed of connection is already within us. By learning to be present with ourselves, we begin to bridge the gap. And from that inner bridge, new possibilities of connection with others naturally unfold. Loneliness, as heavy as it feels, carries within it an invitation. It invites us to turn inward, to soften toward ourselves, and to rediscover the simple truth that love is not something we must always chase. Outside it is something we can cultivate within. Buddhism speaks of metta, or loving kindness, as a practice that transforms not only how we see others, but how we see ourselves. The journey begins with self-compassion. For many, This is the hardest step. We are quick to criticize ourselves. Why am I so weak? Why can't I be happier? Why am I always alone? These judgments deepen the wound of loneliness, convincing us that we are unworthy of love. Yet the Buddha taught that before we can offer kindness to others, we must learn to offer it to ourselves. God, imagine holding a crying child. You would not scold that child for being sad. You would not say, "Why can't you stop crying?" Instead, you would cradle the child, speak gently, and offer comfort. Self-compassion is this same gesture turned inward. When loneliness arises, instead of judging, we can place a hand on our heart and whisper, "It's okay to feel this. May I be gentle with myself in this moment." This small act shifts the experience of loneliness. The ache does not vanish, but it softens. Instead of being an enemy, loneliness becomes a visitor you can sit with. You no longer abandon yourself in the moment of need. This is the beginning of healing. From this inner kindness flows a broader compassion for others. When we recognize our own loneliness, we begin to see it in those around us. The coworker who hides sadness behind small talk, the friend who posts cheerful photos but feels empty at night, the stranger on the bus staring quietly out the window. Compassion opens our eyes to the shared nature of suffering. Loneliness is not a personal flaw, but a universal condition. We are all, in some way, seeking connection, safety, and love. This recognition dissolves the illusion of separation. Instead of feeling isolated in your pain, you realize, I am part of the human family. Others know this ache too. That realization alone can lift a heavy weight, transforming isolation into belonging. One way Buddhism encourages this shift is through the practice of metta meditation. It begins simply. You sit quietly, breathe, and silently repeat phrases of goodwill. First, you direct them to yourself. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I live with ease. Then you extend them to someone you love. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. Gradually, you widen the circle to acquaintances, to strangers, even to those with whom you have conflict. Finally, you extend it to all beings, everywhere. With each repetition, the heart grows softer, warmer, more expansive. Over time, this practice reshapes how you see the world. Instead of a landscape of strangers, you begin to see a web of beings each carrying joys, fears, and longings much like your own. This practice does not erase loneliness instantly, but it transforms its texture. Instead of being trapped in the thought, "No one understands me," you begin to feel, "I am connected to everyone through this very feeling." Loneliness becomes less a prison and more a doorway into compassion. True connection with others then begins with this inner shift. It is not about the number of contacts in your phone or followers online. It is about presence. When you are kind to yourself, you are more able to show up authentically with others. You listen more deeply because you are no longer drowning in self-judgment. You share more honestly because you trust your worth. Relationships rooted in this authenticity carry a richness that surface-level interactions cannot match. Consider a simple conversation between friends. One person speaks of their struggles, and the other listens, not with impatience, not with the urge to fix, but with genuine presence. In that moment, loneliness dissolves for both. One feels heard, the other feels connected through empathy. No phone, no social media post, no large crowd could replace the intimacy of this simple exchange. Practice of compassion also helps us approach relationships without clinging. Often, loneliness drives us to seek others with desperation, as though another person could fill the emptiness inside us. But this leads to fragile bonds, where affection is tangled with fear of loss. Compassion, by contrast, is spacious. It allows us to care deeply while also respecting freedom, our own and others. It says, I love you, not because you erase my loneliness, but because I see your humanity and wish you well. This love is steady, not frantic. Buddhism describes this distinction as the difference between attachment and true love. Attachment grasps, clings, demands. True love flows, gives, and liberates. When we approach others with attachment, we burden them with the impossible task of fixing our inner emptiness. When we approach with compassion, we share joy and support without making them responsible for our sense of worth. Asterisk. This understanding reshapes not only romantic relationships, but friendships, family ties, even encounters with strangers. Each interaction becomes an opportunity to embody kindness, to see the other as a mirror of your own humanity. And in doing so, the walls of loneliness begin to crumble. There is also a quiet paradox here. When you stop seeking others to complete you, genuine connections become easier. People are drawn to presence, to warmth, to authenticity. When you cultivate these qualities within yourself, you naturally invite deeper relationships. Loneliness loosens not by forcing connection, but by becoming the kind of presence that connection longs for. Finally, compassion extends beyond people to life itself. Loneliness often makes us feel cut off from the world, as though we are floating adrift. But when you pause and truly notice the breath moving in and out, the earth supporting your steps, the sky unfolding above, you realize you are already connected to everything. The tree outside your window offers oxygen. The food on your plate comes from countless hands and elements: farmers, rain, soil, sunlight. Life itself is an intricate web of connection, and you are part of it. To remember, this is to feel less alone. Even in solitude, you are not isolated. You are woven into the fabric of existence. Every breath ties you to the great dance of life. And so, as we leave this chapter, we carry with us a new understanding. Loneliness is not a curse, but a teacher. It teaches us the necessity of compassion for ourselves, for others, for all beings. It teaches us that true connection begins not in the number of friends we have, but in the depth of presence we bring to each moment. The journey continues, for there is another realm where attachment and longing often entangle the heart most fiercely: love itself. Romantic relationships, with their promises of joy and fear of loss, often mirror both our deepest hopes and our deepest suffering. To step into this next exploration, we turn to the tender terrain of love and attachment. Love is one of the most celebrated experiences of human life. Songs are written about it, movies revolve around it, and countless dreams are built upon it. To fall in love can feel like stepping into a brighter world, where every color sharpens, every moment deepens, and every breath feels lighter. Yet for many, this beautiful beginning often twists into a heavy weight. The joy of intimacy transforms into anxiety, jealousy, and fear. What was once freedom becomes a chain. Picture the early days of a relationship. Two people meet and sparks fly. They stay up late talking, send messages constantly, and feel as though they have finally found the one. In those first weeks, everything seems possible. But as time passes, the glow begins to fade. Reality replaces fantasy. Flaws emerge, habits clash, and the intensity of desire softens into the routine of daily life. It is here, in this transition, that expectations often rise. Expectations in love can be subtle but powerful. We expect our partner to always understand us, to always be available, to always make us feel valued. When they fail, when they are tired, distracted, or imperfect, we feel betrayed. The mind begins to whisper, "If you loved me, you would act differently." Slowly, love becomes conditional. I will love you as long as you meet my needs, my desires, my image of what a partner should be. This conditional love breeds anxiety. The fear of losing affection hovers constantly, like a shadow over even happy moments. When the partner does not reply quickly to a message, worry grows. When they spend time with others, jealousy flares. Instead of celebrating their freedom, we feel threatened by it. The relationship becomes less about shared joy and more about control, about holding on tightly, so they do not slip away. In this grip of attachment, even small conflicts become storms. A forgotten text becomes evidence of neglect. A difference in opinion becomes a sign of incompatibility. The more we cling, the more fragile the relationship feels. It is as though we are holding a delicate flower in our hand, but squeezing so tightly that we crush its petals. Consider a young woman named Emily. She falls deeply in love with her partner, and at first, she feels alive in a way she never has before. But soon, she begins to measure her worth by his attention. If he compliments her, she glows. If he is distant, she spirals into doubt. Her happiness rises and falls on the tide of his moods. In time, the relationship becomes exhausting, not because love is gone, but because fear has taken over. Emily is not alone. Millions carry this same silent burden in their hearts. When relationships end, a pain can feel unbearable. Breakups often bring not only grief, but also a collapse of identity. We say things like, "I can't live without you," or "You were my whole world." This language reveals the depth of attachment. Our sense of self has become fused with another person. When they leave, it feels as though a part of us has been ripped away. Jealousy, fear, dependency, heartbreak, these are not signs that love itself is flawed, but that love has become entangled with attachment. True love is like a bird in flight, graceful and free. Attachment is like clipping its wings, demanding that it stay in a cage. The bird may remain, but its beauty fades. Modern culture often reinforces this confusion. Movies and songs romanticize obsession, portraying jealousy as proof of passion and dependence as proof of devotion. "I can't live without you" is treated as the highest form of love, rather than a cry of insecurity. People grow up believing that love must consume them, that they must sacrifice their individuality to merge completely with another. But in this merging, they lose not only themselves, but also the very spark that drew them together. In truth, the deeper the attachment, the greater the suffering. When we cling to someone as our sole source of happiness, we place an impossible burden upon them. No partner, no matter how loving, can carry the weight of being our savior, therapist, and mirror all at once. The more we demand, the more cracks appear. Relationships strained by attachment often collapse under this pressure, leaving behind confusion and bitterness. And yet, even knowing this, people continue to cling. Why? Because beneath attachment lies a primal fear, the fear of being alone. Many enter relationships not from wholeness, but from emptiness, hoping another person will fill the void inside. When they meet someone who brings temporary relief, they mistake that relief for salvation. But the void remains, and the hunger for reassurance never ends. This is why heartbreak cuts so deeply. It is not only the loss of a person, but the shattering of the illusion that someone else could make us whole. Left behind is not just grief, but also the uncomfortable truth of our own incompeteness. In this way, love becomes both the sweetest joy and the sharpest suffering. It reveals our longing for connection, but also our tendency to grasp, to control, to depend. To navigate this paradox requires wisdom, the wisdom to distinguish between true love and attachment, between freedom and fear. But before we move into solutions, it is important to linger here, in the raw reality of love entangled with expectation. To name it clearly, the jealousy that poisons trust, the dependency that erodes selfhood, the heartbreak that feels like life's end. Only by facing this pain honestly can we prepare to discover a love that liberates instead of binds, a love that nourishes instead of consumes. And so, we pause with this image, two hands clutching each other, not in gentle embrace, but in desperate grip. The tighter they hold, the more pain arises. The question becomes, can love exist without the grip of fear? Can we release enough to let love breathe? The next step in our journey will show how ancient wisdom guides us toward this possibility. Buddhism offers a vision of love not as possession, but as liberation, not as clinging, but as compassion. In that vision lies the doorway to relationships that uplift rather than imprison. The night is quiet, yet the mind is loud. A man lies in bed, staring at the ceiling. His body is exhausted, but sleep refuses to come. Thoughts race endlessly. What if I lose my job? What if the bills pile higher? What if something happens to my children? He flips over, checks the clock to 13 a.m. The minutes tick by, each one amplifying the panic. By morning, he will rise with aching eyes, drag himself through another day, and repeat the cycle that millions know too well. This is the landscape of modern anxiety. It is not always a sudden storm. More often, it is a constant drizzle that soaks into every part of life. Anxiety whispers during commutes, lingers in office meetings, and waits quietly at the dinner table. Sometimes it roars into panic attacks, heart pounding, chest tightening, breath shallow, the terrifying belief that something catastrophic is about to happen. Other times, it hums beneath the surface, like background static, making even simple tasks feel heavy. In the United States, anxiety disorders are among the most common mental health struggles. Yet beyond statistics, anxiety is woven into the culture itself. The American dream, for many, has become an American pressure, always striving, always comparing, always fearing that time is running out. Parents worry about their children's future. Young adults worry about careers and relationships. Retirees worry whether they saved enough. Anxiety is no longer a private issue. It is a collective soundtrack. Pharmacies testify to this reality. Shelves of sleep aids and anti-anxiety medications are sold by the millions. Prescriptions for tranquilizers and antidepressants climb each year. For some, these medicines are lifelines, offering relief in unbearable moments. But their popularity also reveals a deeper truth. People are desperate for silence in their minds, for rest in their hearts, for escape from the relentless weight of what if. Consider the pace of daily life. A worker juggles deadlines, emails, and meetings, while also worrying about groceries, car repairs, and aging parents. Even leisure becomes stressful. Vacations are planned like military operations, measured not by rest, but by how many experiences can be squeezed into a few days. Entertainment is consumed rapidly. Scroll, swipe, binge each distraction, offering momentary relief before anxiety returns. The nervous system, overstimulated, never gets a chance to reset. Technology amplifies this unease. Phones buzz with news of disasters, wars, economic downturns. Social media floods the mind with curated lives, making us fear we are always behind, missing out, falling short. The constant stream of information convinces us that danger is everywhere, that we must remain vigilant, that peace is naive. The body responds as if hunted, activating fight or flight even when we are simply sitting on a couch. Anxiety is also fueled by the illusion of control. The mind insists, if I plan enough, if I prepare enough, if I worry enough, I can prevent disaster. And so, people rehearse endless scenarios. The job interview, the confrontation with a boss, the potential medical diagnosis. They replay past conversations, analyzing every word, or project catastrophes into the future. Yet none of this guarantees safety. Instead, it robs the present moment, trapping life in a loop of regret and anticipation. The cruelty of anxiety is that it convinces us we are alone in it. Each person believes their panic is unique, their worries a sign of weakness. But anxiety is profoundly human. It is the mind's attempt to protect us from uncertainty, from impermanence, from the vast unpredictability of life. Recognizing this can soften the shame. The racing heart, the restless thoughts, they are not failures. They are misguided survival strategies, signals of a mind that longs for safety. Still, the toll is undeniable. Relationships suffer when anxiety fuels irritability or withdrawal. Parents, distracted by constant worry, struggle to be present with their children. Friends drift apart when one feels too overwhelmed to reach out. Work performance declines as concentration fractures under pressure. Even the body rebels: tight shoulders, headaches, stomach pain, insomnia. Anxiety does not stay in the mind. It inhabits the whole being. And yet, beneath this storm lies a profound opportunity. Anxiety reveals what we fear losing: health, stability, love, life itself. In this way, it is a teacher, pointing directly to what we value most. It asks us, sometimes harshly, to confront the reality that nothing is guaranteed. The job may be lost, the relationship may end, the body may weaken. These truths are not comfortable, but they are the foundation of wisdom. For only when we stop resisting impermanence can we discover peace within it. To sit honestly with anxiety is to see that the real suffering is not just the worry itself, but our resistance to it. We fight our thoughts, battle our fears, scold ourselves for not being calm. This struggle adds a second layer of pain, the pain of rejecting what already is. The more we resist, the more anxiety tightens its grip. So here we are, in the middle of the storm, the sleepless nights, the clenched jaws, the restless scrolling, the desperate search for relief. We do not turn away or minimize it. We name it clearly. This is anxiety, the restless child of fear and uncertainty. By naming it, we prepare to meet it differently. For just as we discovered with money, work, and love, the solution is not found in escape or denial, but in a shift of perspective. Buddhism offers a way to face anxiety not as an enemy, but as a passing cloud, not as a permanent prison, but as a temporary weather pattern in the vast sky of awareness. And so, we close this part with a question. If anxiety is not who we are, but simply an experience passing through us, what would it feel like to rest in that larger awareness? The next step of our journey will explore how ancient wisdom teaches us to unhook from the racing mind, to see thoughts as clouds rather than commands, and to rediscover the spacious peace that has been with us all along. Anxiety tells us over and over, you must fix this. You must solve this. You must control everything or disaster will come. It is a voice that rarely rests, a constant commentator filling the silence with fear. Buddhism offers a radical invitation. Do not fight the voice, do not obey it, and do not identify with it. Instead, observe it. See it for what it is, a passing thought, not a permanent truth. This is the essence of mindfulness, the ability to watch the mind without becoming the mind. Imagine sitting by a riverbank. Thoughts rush by like water, sometimes calm, sometimes turbulent. Anxiety is like a flood, carrying debris, noise, and foam. But you are not the water. You are the watcher on the shore. You can see the current, feel its power, yet remain grounded in the soil of awareness. Not when anxiety arises, the common mistake is to merge with it. A thought like, what if I fail, appears, and instantly the body reacts, heart racing, stomach tightening. We believe the thought is truth, and we spiral. But if, in that very moment, we can pause and say, I notice the thought. What if I fail? The grip loosens. The thought is seen as a cloud drifting across the sky of mind. It may linger, it may darken, but it cannot stain the sky itself. The Buddha often reminded his followers that suffering multiplies when we identify with passing states. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. In modern terms, you cannot always stop anxious thoughts from arising, but you can choose whether to feed them. Each time you replay a worry, you strengthen its power. Each time you step back and observe, you weaken it. One practice that illuminates this is labeling thoughts. When anxiety arises, instead of drowning in the story, you gently name it: planning, worrying, fearing. This simple act creates distance. The thought is no longer your identity. It is just an event in consciousness. You become the observer, not the prisoner. Another practice is to anchor the mind in the body. Anxiety lives in the future, in the endless what-ifs. The body lives only in the present. By noticing your breath, the sensation of your feet on the floor, the warmth of your hands, you return from imagined catastrophes to actual reality. In this moment, right here, you are safe. The roof is not collapsing. The world is not ending. The only reality is the breath moving in and out, steady and quiet. Over time, this practice reveals a profound truth. You are not the voice in your head. You are the awareness that hears the voice. You are the sky, not the storm. When this truth sinks in, anxiety begins to lose its authority. It still appears, but it no longer dictates your life. Yet, the practice is not about suppression. Many people make the mistake of trying to fight anxiety. Stop thinking this. Stop feeling this. But resistance gives it strength. What you resist persists. The Buddhist approach is gentler. Accept the presence of anxiety without feeding it. Welcome it as you would an unexpected guest. Offer it space, but do not let it run the house. This attitude of acceptance transforms anxiety from an enemy into a teacher. Each anxious thought becomes an opportunity to practice presence. Each wave of fear becomes a chance to remember impermanence. For just as no storm lasts forever, no anxious episode is eternal. Feelings rise and fall, like everything else in life. Generosity of heart also plays a role here. When we are consumed by anxiety, the focus is often narrow. My problems, my future, my fears. Expanding the circle through compassion for others loosens the tight grip of self-concern. Practicing loving-kindness meditation, as explored earlier, not only softens loneliness, but also calms anxiety. Wishing safety and peace for others reminds us that we are part of a larger whole. Our worries shrink when set against the vastness of shared humanity. There is also wisdom in surrender. Much of anxiety comes from the illusion of control. We believe that if we plan enough, worry enough, anticipate enough, we can prevent suffering. But life resists this illusion. Accidents happen, markets crash, bodies age, relationships change. No amount of worry can stop impermanence. To see this clearly is frightening at first, but ultimately liberating. For when we admit we cannot control everything, we are free to focus on what we can. Our presence, our actions, our response in this moment. This surrender is not passivity. It is not giving up on responsibility. It is choosing to release the futile attempt to control the uncontrollable. It is planting seeds with care, but letting go of the demand for guaranteed harvest. It is doing your best, then resting in the knowledge that the outcome is not entirely yours to command. A story illustrates this shift. A farmer works tirelessly, worrying day and night about his crops. He checks the soil constantly, waters excessively, fears the rain, fears the drought. His anxiety consumes him. Then one day, he meets a wise teacher who tells him, "Do your part with diligence, then trust the earth. The crop will grow not by your worry, but by the balance of sun, soil, and rain. Your task is effort, not control." The farmer learns to work with care, but sleep with peace. His anxiety dissolves when he accepts the limits of his power. Likewise, our lives grow not through constant worry, but through steady presence. We tend to what we can: our health, our relationships, our responsibilities, but we release the impossible task of controlling the entire future. In doing so, the heart finds rest. Slowly, through practice, anxiety shifts. It may still visit, but it no longer dominates. Nights become quieter. Days feel lighter. A mind, once a battlefield, becomes a garden where thoughts come and go like passing weather. The self, once entangled in fear, discovers a deeper identity as awareness itself vast, spacious, untouched. Asterisk, and in that spaciousness, peace becomes possible, not as an escape from life's uncertainty, but as harmony with it. We no longer need to know the future to rest in the present. We no longer need to eliminate fear to live with courage. So we close this chapter with a quiet realization. Anxiety is not a life sentence. It is a cloud. You are the sky. And when the cloud passes, as all clouds do, the sky remains open, boundless, clear. The journey now turns to the wider landscape of modern life. The endless race of consumerism and ambition, the chase for more that never satisfies. For if anxiety reveals our struggle with the future, the endless pursuit of success reveals our struggle with meaning itself. And it is there, in the search for lasting fulfillment, that another truth awaits discovery. From childhood, many are told a story. If you work hard, study well, and keep pushing forward, life will reward you. You will climb the ladder, buy the house, secure the job, raise the family, and eventually arrive at a destination called happiness. This story, often wrapped in the phrase "the American dream," is powerful. It has inspired generations. But for countless people, it has also become a treadmill, an endless race where arrival never truly comes. Picture the rhythm of this dream. A young student is told, "Get good grades so you can enter a good college." In college, the message shifts. "Do well here so you can land a good job." At the job, the pressure becomes, "Work harder so you can get promoted." After the promotion comes the demand for more: buy a bigger home, upgrade the car, climb higher, save faster, achieve more. Each milestone is meant to bring satisfaction, yet the moment it is reached, another appears on the horizon. It is like chasing the mirage of water in a desert. From a distance, it seems real, shimmering with promise. But when you arrive, the ground is dry, and the thirst continues. The next goal beckons, and so the chase repeats. Life becomes a series of postponed joys. I'll rest after this project. I'll be happy once I get that house. I'll feel complete when I retire. But retirement arrives, and even then, anxiety remains. Do I have enough savings? Did I do enough with my life? This endless race is not simply personal, it is cultural. Advertisements fuel it daily. Billboards, commercials, and online feeds all whisper the same mantra. You need more. You are not enough as you are. Buy this, achieve that, and then you'll be fulfilled. A new phone promises belonging. A luxury car promises respect. A dream vacation promises joy. Yet beneath the glossy images, the same emptiness lingers. Even success itself often deepens the hunger. Consider the executive who finally achieves the corner office. For a moment, pride swells. But soon, the satisfaction fades. The office becomes ordinary. The title loses its shine. Now the pressure is to maintain status, to aim for the next level, to protect what has been gained. Success, instead of freeing, becomes another chain. This cycle is exhausting. People sacrifice health-skipping sleep, ignoring exercise, numbing stress with caffeine or alcohol. They sacrifice relationships, missing dinners, neglecting family, replacing presence with promises of someday. They sacrifice inner peace living in constant comparison, measuring themselves against neighbors, colleagues, or strangers online. The race meant to deliver happiness often strips it away. Consider Michael, a man in his 40s. He worked tirelessly for 2 decades, climbing from entry level to senior management. He earned the house, the car, the vacations. Outwardly, he had everything society promised would bring joy. Yet one night, sitting alone in his living room, he realized he felt empty. The house felt silent, the trophies of success hollow. He whispered to himself, "Is this all?" Michael's story is echoed by millions who reach their goals only to find that the finish line is an illusion. Why does the dream disappoint? Because it is built on a false assumption that fulfillment is found outside ourselves, in achievements, possessions, or status. But these things are impermanent. The new car ages, the house needs repairs, the job title is replaced by another. No external achievement can offer lasting satisfaction because the nature of life is change. Clinging to changeable things as the source of happiness is like trying to anchor a boat in shifting sand. The Buddha described this as dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness of life when we cling to impermanent things. It is not that achievements or possessions are wrong. It is that expecting them to deliver permanent joy sets us up for inevitable disappointment. The more we chase, the more restless we become, and this restlessness is visible everywhere. Look at the highways filled with cars rushing to work, the endless advertisements promising better lives, the crowded malls buzzing with consumption. Look at the exhaustion etched into faces on subways and buses, the hurried meals, the sleepless nights. A culture that glorifies more, bigger, faster leaves little space for simply being. Even leisure is captured by the race. Vacations are curated for social media, turned into performances rather than genuine rest. Hobbies are monetized, measured for productivity. People feel guilty if they are not constantly improving, producing, or proving themselves. Rest becomes laziness. Simplicity becomes failure. The race continues, even in moments meant for pause. And so, we find ourselves caught in a paradox. Surrounded by abundance, many feel impoverished within. Surrounded by opportunities, many feel trapped. Surrounded by connections, many feel isolated. The external dream shines brightly, but the inner life grows dim. This endless striving leaves a haunting question. When will it be enough? For many, the answer is heartbreaking. Never. Because the race was never designed to end. It feeds on our longing, keeping us running faster, reaching further, always just out of reach of peace. But this realization, though painful, is also the beginning of freedom. To see clearly that the dream cannot deliver what it promises is to open the door to another way. It is to ask, if not in the next promotion, the next purchase, the next milestone, where does true fulfillment lie? This question does not dismiss ambition or achievement. It simply reframes them. Work, success, and possessions can be part of life, but they are not the foundation of happiness. To mistake them for ultimate meaning is to confuse the signpost for the destination. And so, as we stand in the middle of this race, panting, weary, clutching our trophies, and still feeling empty, we pause. We pause to acknowledge the truth. The finish line we have been chasing does not exist. The dream, as it is commonly told, is an illusion of arrival. This pause is not despair, it is clarity. For once we see the illusion, we are free to seek a different path. A path not of endless striving, but of presence. A path not of clinging, but of simplicity. A path not of racing toward happiness in the future, but of discovering it here, now, in the only place it has ever been. And so, the question arises naturally. If the race cannot satisfy, what can? If the external dream is hollow, what is the inner truth? The next part of our journey will open this door, exploring how the wisdom of the middle way offers an alternative to the cycle of chasing, a way to live with balance, presence, and true contentment. The Buddha's path was not one of extremes. He rejected both indulgence in luxury and self-denial in harsh asceticism. Instead, he taught the middle way, a balanced path that avoids the endless swing between craving and deprivation. In the modern world, this teaching is not abstract philosophy. It is a medicine for the relentless chase of the next big thing. It shows us that happiness is not found in running endlessly forward, nor in rejecting life completely, but in pausing, breathing, and discovering joy already present. Happiness is here, not ahead. Consider a runner on a treadmill. No matter how fast they move, the ground beneath does not change. This is the cycle of consumerism and ambition, always striving, never arriving. The middle way invites us to step off the treadmill and notice the ground beneath our feet. Happiness is not waiting at the finish line. It is available in the present moment. Think of a simple meal shared with a friend. The warmth of conversation, the taste of food, the presence of another human being. These are moments rich with joy. Yet often, we miss them because the mind is already planning tomorrow's tasks or reliving yesterday's mistakes. A middle way is not about creating extraordinary experiences, but about awakening to the ordinary ones we overlook. Contentment, the antidote to endless. Craving Buddhism teaches that craving is the root of suffering. When we crave, we live in a state of not enough. No matter what we achieve or acquire, the mind immediately looks for more. Contentment, by contrast, is the quiet recognition that what we have in this moment is sufficient. Contentment does not mean apathy. It does not mean giving up dreams or ignoring responsibilities. It means living with gratitude. A roof overhead, a meal on the table, the sound of laughter, the breath in our lungs. These simple blessings are easily forgotten in the race for more. By pausing to notice them, we step out of scarcity and into abundance. There is a story of a monk who is asked what he gained from meditation. He replied, "Nothing." The questioner was surprised. The monk smiled and said, "But I lost my anger, my fear, my endless craving." This is the essence of contentment, not in gaining more, but in releasing the restless hunger that blinds us to the richness of life as it is. Asterisk. Simplicity is freedom. Asterisk, the middle way, also calls us to simplicity. In a world of clutter, physical, mental, digital simplicity is an act of rebellion. It means choosing enough instead of excess, choosing depth instead of distraction. Simplicity does not strip life of beauty. It reveals beauty more clearly. Imagine walking into a quiet room with a single flower on the table. Its presence is striking, not because it is surrounded by more, but because it stands alone, noticed. Our lives can be like that flower. When we strip away excess, what matters shines: brighter relationships, health, creativity, peace. Simplicity can begin with small acts. Turning off notifications, setting aside one evening without screens, savoring a meal without multitasking. Each act is a reminder. Life is not richer when crowded. It is richer when clear. Asterisk, stopping the race. The middle way also teaches the courage to stop. In modern culture, stopping is seen as failure. We are told, keep hustling, keep producing, keep climbing. Yet without stopping, we never truly live. Stopping does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means pausing long enough to remember why we are alive. It means taking a walk in silence, noticing the sky, listening to a loved one without rushing to respond. It means sitting quietly with the breath, discovering that in stillness, life is already complete. Thich Nhat Hanh often taught the practice of mindful breathing with simple words. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. Nothing complicated, nothing mystical, just presence. This simple act interrupts the momentum of the race, reminding us that peace is always one breath away. Joy beyond achievement, the middle way, also reframes success. True success is not measured by possessions or status, but by the peace we carry within. A wealthy person with constant anxiety is poor in spirit. A simple person with a calm heart is rich beyond measure. This does not mean rejecting ambition entirely. Goals can be meaningful. Work can be fulfilling. But when they are pursued with mindfulness and balance, they do not consume us. They become expressions of creativity rather than chains of craving. Success, in this sense, is not about arriving at a final destination, but about walking each step with awareness and integrity. Practicing the middle way in daily life. How do we live this balance in practice? Mindful consumption. Ask before buying. Do I need this, or am I trying to fill a void? By pausing, we break the cycle of mindless craving. Sabbath moments. Create small pockets of rest in daily life. A walk without the phone. A meal without screens. A morning with no rushing. These pauses re-anchor us in presence. Gratitude practice. Each evening, note 3 simple things you are grateful for. A kind word. A hot shower. A moment of laughter. Gratitude shifts the focus from what is missing to what is already here. Balancing effort and rest. Work diligently, but also rest deeply. Like a bow that must be neither too tight nor too loose. Balance creates harmony. Got compassion in action. Extend kindness in small ways. Holding a door. Listening with patience. Offering a smile. Compassion breaks the self-centered race and reconnects us with others. The spaciousness of the present. Middle way ultimately leads us back to the present moment. Here, life is vivid and whole. The taste of tea, the sound of rain, the presence of a friend, each is a doorway to peace when entered fully. The future will always remain uncertain. The past will always remain unchangeable. But the present is alive, unfolding, abundant. To rest in it is to discover that the happiness we chased was never ahead of us. It was waiting patiently here, now, beneath our feet. And so, the endless race begins to dissolve. The dream of someday fades into the reality of today. The chase for more is replaced by gratitude for enough. The restless search for more meaning is replaced by the discovery that meaning is found in presence, compassion, and balance. The middle way is not a rejection of life, nor an indulgence in it. It is a harmony with life. It is a reminder that happiness is not something to achieve, but something to notice. As we close this final chapter, we prepare to gather all the threads, money, work, loneliness, love, anxiety, and the endless race, and weave them into a conclusion. The ending will not be a conclusion in the ordinary sense, but a new beginning, an invitation to live differently, to plant seeds of hope, to discover freedom in the simple act of being. The journey we have taken together has moved through many landscapes of the human heart. We began with the heavy weight of money, the endless pressure to provide and survive. We walked through the grinding stress of work, where identity becomes tangled in performance. We entered the silent ache of loneliness, even in a world saturated with connections. We faced the fragile terrain of love, where joy so easily transforms into jealousy and dependence. We acknowledged the restless storm of anxiety, the racing mind that never stops. And we stood in the midst of the endless race of consumerism, chasing a horizon that never arrives. These landscapes may seem different, but at their core, they share the same root. Clinging to impermanent things, searching outside ourselves for lasting peace. Money rises and falls. Jobs begin and end. Relationships shift. The body ages. The economy wavers. Life moves like a river, and when we try to grasp the water, it slips through our fingers. Suffering arises not from the water itself, but from the grasping. The wisdom of the Buddha, shared across centuries, is simple yet profound. Peace is possible, but only when we stop clinging. Joy is available, but only when we stop chasing it elsewhere. Freedom is not in controlling life, but in learning to walk with it, gently, with awareness. Looking back, what we have learned from money, we learned the truth of impermanence and the art of contentment. We saw that wealth cannot measure our worth, And that generosity liberates the heart more than accumulation ever could. From work, we learned the practice of mindfulness, bringing presence into each task, transforming labor into meditation. We saw that worth is not measured by productivity, but by presence. From loneliness, we discovered the power of compassion. True connection begins within, when we treat ourselves with kindness and extend that kindness outward. In this, loneliness transforms from curse into teacher. From love, we learn to distinguish between attachment and true affection. Attachment clings and suffocates. True love frees and celebrates. To love without chains is to allow both ourselves and others to grow. From anxiety, we learn to see thoughts as clouds, not commands. By observing rather than obeying them, we discovered a space of freedom, a sky vast enough to hold every storm. From the endless race, we learned the middle way: balance, simplicity, gratitude. We saw that happiness is not a distant arrival, but a present discovery. Together, these lessons form a tapestry of wisdom. Each thread alone offers guidance, but woven together, they reveal a path of living with awareness, compassion, and freedom. The invitation to pause before we step further. Let us pause. Wherever you are right now, sitting at a desk, lying in bed, walking outside, pause for a single breath. Feel the air enter your lungs. Notice its coolness, its movement, its gift. Exhale and notice the release. For this moment, there is nothing to chase, nothing to fix, nothing to fear. There is only the breath. This pause is not small. It is revolutionary. In a culture of endless motion, to pause is to reclaim life. Each breath is an anchor to the present, a reminder that peace is always available. It is not in the past you regret, nor in the future you fear, but here, in the gentle rhythm of now, planting seeds of hope. The teachings we have explored are not meant to remain as ideas. They are seeds. Seeds grow only when planted in the soil of daily life, watered with practice and nurtured with patience. What does it mean to plant these seeds? When faced with financial stress, pause and ask, what is enough? What am I grateful for right now? Practice generosity, even in small ways, to remind yourself that abundance flows through giving. When work feels overwhelming, return to the breath. Focus on the task before you, not the mountain ahead. Let each email, each call, each small action become a moment of presence. When loneliness arises, place a hand on your heart. Whisper words of kindness to yourself. Then extend those words outward. May all beings feel safe. May all beings feel loved. Notice how the wall between you and the world begins to thin. When love feels heavy with fear, ask, am I clinging or am I freeing? Am I seeking to control or to celebrate? Choose to love in a way that liberates, not imprisons. When anxiety storms, remember, you are the sky, not the cloud. Label the thought gently. Anchor in the body. Breathe. Let the storm pass without losing yourself in it. When the race for more tempts you, stop. Notice the ground under your feet, the sky above, the life around you. Ask, what can I let go of today? What simple joy is already here? Each of these practices is a seed. With time, they grow into habits. With care, they transform not only moments, but entire lives. The journey is ongoing. It is important to remember, this is not about perfection. You will still feel stress. You will still get caught in comparison, fall into worry, cling to love, or chase after more. That is not failure, it is human. The practice is not to eliminate these experiences, but to meet them with awareness. Each time you notice, you return. Each return is a victory. Even the Buddha did not promise a life without difficulty. He promised a way to relate to difficulty differently. He taught that suffering is part of life, but unnecessary suffering, the suffering of clinging, resisting, denying, can be released. The journey is not about becoming someone else. It is about becoming fully yourself-aware, compassionate, free. The circle of compassion as your practice deepens, something beautiful begins to happen. Your peace becomes a gift to others. A calm presence soothes anxious colleagues. A compassionate word comforts lonely friends. A generous act inspires kindness in strangers. In this way, your inner work ripples outward, touching lives you may never know. This is the deeper promise of the path. It is not only for you, it is for the world. Each act of awareness and compassion contributes to a collective healing. Imagine if workplaces were filled with mindful people, if families practiced compassion, if communities embraced simplicity. The culture of stress, loneliness, and endless racing could shift into a culture of presence, kindness, and balance. You are part of that possibility. Every small seed you plant is a contribution. Closing image. The gentle river asterisk. Think of consciousness as a great river. For years, perhaps decades, stones of fear, craving, and attachment had disturbed its flow, creating turbulence. But with practice with mindfulness, compassion, and simplicity, the water begins to clear. The stones remain, but the river moves smoothly around them. Over time, some stones settle, others are carried away. The river becomes spacious, calm, alive. This is your mind. This is your life. It does not need to be perfect to be peaceful. It only needs space. A final invitation. As this journey comes to an end, know that the end is also a beginning. The teachings are not meant to be remembered only in theory, but lived in practice. They are not heavy commandments, but gentle invitations. Start small. One breath, one act of generosity, one moment of gratitude. These are not insignificant. They are the seeds of transformation. Over time, they grow into a life of balance, presence, and peace. You do not need to wait for a perfect future to begin. You do not need to fix everything before you can rest. You do not need to be free of anxiety, loneliness, or stress before you can touch peace. You only need this moment, this breath, this awareness. Happiness is not elsewhere. It is here. Freedom is not later. It is now. So as you move forward, carry this truth gently in your heart. You are already enough. You are already whole. And in your awareness, compassion, and presence, you carry the seeds of peace, not only for yourself, but for the world. Take a breath. Smile softly. Begin again.